G'day, Dave here, and we're looking at Matthew chapter 6, verses 25 through to 34. This is the Sermon on the Mount, and Jesus is addressing the topic of worry, anxiety. And anxiety has been one of those hidden and increasingly out in the open issues that we've been facing for years and years and years. In fact, amongst teenagers, anxiety is one of the biggest problems. And it's not a surprise. When you look at our world, it seems to be out of control. It seems to be a mess. In fact, some people have said it's amazing that all people aren't anxious all the time. But this, I think, is a problem because it assumes that we don't know God. Jesus gives us reasons not to be anxious. And if anxiety is being concerned about the future and a lack of control and worrying that it's going to hit us hard, Jesus is saying to us, don't be anxious. God has your future. God knows what's going on. You can trust God with what's going to happen tomorrow and next year and in the next decade, right through to the end of your life and into eternity. So don't double up and worry about it now. Well, let's have a look at what Jesus has to say. And I think we'll see 6 reasons in this passage why we don't need to be anxious, why we don't need to worry, when you realize that Jesus is actually focusing us on what God is doing. Let's have a look then. Verse 25, Jesus says, "Therefore I tell you, do not worry about your life, what you will eat or drink, or about your body, what you will wear. Is not life more than food, and the body more than clothes?" Here he pictures things like food and drink and clothing, the consumer world that we live in, the things that shops are full of, that our life seems to be focused on, and we're being told to go and buy. You got to shop, you got to get, you need these things, you got to keep up, you need to look good. And Jesus is saying, don't worry about these things. Don't let these be sources of anxiety, because there's more to life than the things that you eat. There's more to life than the things that you wear. You're not summed up by your diet or your menu. You're not summed up by the clothing that you wear. You're not the sum total of your Instagram posts, whether it's your dinners or whether it's your clothing or whether it's your hairstyle or whether it's your makeup. Jesus is saying you're more than what you see on the surface. You're more than your clothing. You're more than what you eat. Life is more than food, and the body is more than clothes. In other words, Jesus is reshaping our priorities. There's more to life than the things that we worry about. He goes on, it's unnecessary. Look at verse 26. "Look at the birds of the air. They do not sow or reap or store away in barns, and yet your heavenly Father feeds them. Are you not much more valuable than they?" So don't worry, Jesus says, because it's unnecessary. Case study, look at the birds. The birds don't have to invest. They don't have to buy portfolios. They don't have to put money in the bank. They don't have to set aside for their retirement. They don't have to have massive savings. God looks after the birds. And God cares about the birds, but how much more does he care for you? You're more valuable than they. God feeds the birds. He's going to look after you. You're not going to gain anything by being worried about whether you've got enough food or whether you're wearing the right clothes, because God's got these things covered. He knows what you need already, and you're more valuable than they. Third reason he says not to be worried is it doesn't actually achieve anything. It doesn't work. Verse 27, "Can any of you, by worrying, add a single hour to your life?" Now, in the original, it literally says, "Who of you by worrying can add a single cubit to your height?" I think that's a little bit funnier. I mean, you imagine somebody standing in front of a mirror and they're worried that they're short. And what Jesus is saying is, what good does that do you? You're stressing out about the fact that you feel that you're short. Well, are you going to get taller through worrying? Are you going to live longer through stress? Are you going to have a better life because you're anxious about it? In other words, it just doesn't work. It doesn't achieve anything. It doesn't bring about any good results. If anything, it might shorten your life. If anything, it might make life worse. The fourth reason, Jesus says, it's unnecessary again. God looks after the flowers, and he's going to therefore look after you. So verse 28, "And why do you worry about clothes? See how the flowers of the field grow? They do not labour or spin. Yet I tell you that not even Solomon in all of his splendour was dressed like one of these. If that is how God clothes the grass of the field, which is here today and tomorrow is thrown into the fire, will he not much more clothe you, O you of little faith? In other words, just have a look around about you. Look at the gardens, look at the flowers, look at the buds on the bushes, look at the plants, look at what God produces. And God clothes the beauty of the natural flora. And how much more is God going to look after you? In fact, God cares for something that might be here today and gone tomorrow. And in the Middle East, sometimes the grasses would grow up and they'd flower, but they'd be gone in the hot winds within a day. We live longer than that. We're more valuable to God, our Father, than that. So, therefore, how much more will he clothe us? And here's the issue. O you of little faith. So the bottom line here, when it comes to worry, when it comes to anxiety, when we're stressing out about what we don't have or what might be in front of us or what the future might look like, Jesus is saying that the deep-rooted problem, it's a faith issue. It's that we don't trust God. It's that we're not realizing that God's already promised to take care of us. So you can leave it with God. Fifth reason, Jesus says, there's actually bigger priorities in life than worrying about what we eat and what we drink and what we will wear. Look at verses 31 and following. So do not worry, saying, what shall we eat? What shall we drink? What shall we wear? For the pagans, that is, those who aren't religious, those who aren't Jewish, those who don't follow God, even they run after all these things, and your heavenly Father knows that you need them. But seek first his kingdom and his righteousness, and all these things will be given to you as well. Jesus is saying here, it's not right for people in relationship with God to live as though they're not in relationship with God. The pagans, those who don't know God, yeah, they stress about what they're going to eat and wear and drink and the mundane things of life. They get hassled about their jobs and their security. They worry about these sorts of things. But Jesus is saying you don't have to. No, you've got a Father in heaven who cares for you. You've got a King on the throne who's invited you into his kingdom. He's going to provide for you and do that generously. That doesn't mean you'll have absolutely everything that your heart might desire in this life. But God will give you everything that you need. And one day he'll take you into his presence and give you more than you could ever imagine. And so Jesus pushes us to refocus our priorities. He says, seek first his kingdom and his righteousness, and all these things will be given to you as well. You'll have what you need. Don't worry about it. Look to God's concerns, to God's priorities, to God's kingdom. Look to the things that God says matter most, and he'll take care of the rest. Don't you worry about it. And then finally, sixth reason why you don't need to worry if you're trusting in God is that it only makes things worse. Verse 34, therefore do not worry about tomorrow, for tomorrow will worry about itself. Each day has enough trouble of its own. You see, if there's a reason to worry about something that's going to happen tomorrow, you're going to have to worry about it when it happens tomorrow. So don't worry about it today as well. There are things to get on and focus on right now. And so don't keep bringing the future into the present. Don't catastrophize what's going on now. I was driving into Port Macquarie a number of months ago, and I was listening to an advertisement about how anxiety can take root in a person's experience. They can be worried that they're running late, and then their mind keeps processing that, I'm running late. And then they take it to the next step. The boss is going to be angry. And then the next step, the boss is going to sack me. He's going to sack me. The next step, then I'm going to have to go home and tell my wife that we won't have an income. And then the next step, she's going to divorce me. And then I'm going to be out on the street. And then I'm going to be homeless. And then I'll be destitute. And then I'll be cut off from everyone. And you see, it all started from running late. Don't catastrophize. Don't be anxious. Rewrite the script. And friends, from the Christian perspective, from following Jesus, the script is God has you as his child. God is caring for you. He's providing for you. He will take care of you. So don't worry about tomorrow, because tomorrow will have its own issues. Focus on the kingdom of heaven. Put that first and go on about living today.